So does anybody here like beer? All right, I'm gonna teach you how to make it in about 4 minutes and tell my story along with it. So it all started about 3.5 years ago. I went to a wedding and they had a bunch of homebrew there. It was one of the best beers I ever tasted. So I found the guest that had made it, tracked him down, introduced myself, and invited myself over to his house. And saw him do his process, and he worked his magic in the driveway on this system. So I got interested, read a bunch of books, thought I knew a lot, and built some equipment, brewed my first batch, realized how dumb I was, and then it all went uphill from there. So brewing started about 7,000 years ago, according to Wikipedia, so we know it's right. And it was legalized in the U.S. in '78, and all the states started legalizing it. And now you can brew about 100 gallons per person in your household. So I had to justify it to my wife. I tied it in with a school project, and I needed a new hobby, and we both like good beer, but couldn't justify it to my dad. He's like, son, you know they sell this stuff in stores. So you need 3 ingredients according to German law. You need malted barley, water, and hops. Little did they know the yeast was doing all the work, and they didn't even know it existed. So there's 2 ways to do it. There's whole grain brewing. This is like your brewery down the street. That's the muddy puddle I jumped into. It's more time intensive. It's more variable and more capital intensive, as you've seen. But the other way is you can do extract brewing. It takes a lot less time. It's less expensive, and you can do it in your kitchen. You start with syrup of sugar and go from there. So if you want to get into brewing, there's a homebrew shop in town here, Kirk's Homebrew, and you can buy a kit like this, and you have everything you need to start out. It's a little bit over $100 and make your kitchen a brewery. So if you're going the whole grain way, you need your base malt, where you get all your sugar from. You need your specialty grains. That's where you get your various different colors of beer and a little bit of flavor. And then you can add adjuncts in, which lighten up the flavor some and give it characteristics. So the first thing you do when you get your grain, first thing I did was build myself a grain grinder. So you grind it up, make sure not to mash up the husk because that's used to strain the sugar out. And you take that ground up grain, throw it in your mash tun / lauter tun, and pour hot water on it, let it sit for about an hour, and let the enzymes do the magic. They break all your starches into sugars that are fermentable. Then you drain the sugar water out and you got wort, and you do a sparging process, which you wash the extra sugar out of the grain and drain all the extra sugar out. And this is about where you start the extract brewing process. So you throw your sugar water in the boiling kettle, start boiling, do it for about an hour, and you throw hops in there to balance out the flavor so it's not too sweet, and you get a good aroma out of the hops also. From this point, you go to your fermenter, put your boiled wort in the fermenter and toss the yeast in. You can either do a lagering yeast or ailing yeast, depending on what temperature you want to do it at. And this is where the magic happens. And you let it sit for 2 to 4 weeks. Then you add a priming sugar to it, invite your friends over, so when it comes to drinking the beer, you don't have a bunch of henny pennies hanging around. And let it sit for 2 weeks to carbonate at room temperature, then cool it and distribute it to friends. So I found a positive correlation into how good you brew and how many friends you have. And if you really suck, not many people show up. So I started out by building myself a bunch of equipment. This is some of the equipment that I built over the years. I had to do it electronic for my school project, and there's nothing scarier than mechanical engineering acting like an electrician. So out of this, I developed some products, and I'm starting to kick off my homebrew tool business. And my flagship here is the one in the center called the Heat Guide. It makes your brewing more efficient, guides the heat up around your kettle. So this product is made in Lincoln, sold in Lincoln, and hopefully sold all over the state. So hopefully I piqued your interest in brewing, and if I have, I'll be back at the bar drinking a beer if you want to come talk.